The champagne tasted like regret, but I kept drinking it anyway. Standing in the corner of this overpriced hotel ballroom, watching my wife Sienna work the room like she owned it, I wondered how the hell I'd ended up here. The charity gala was her idea, of course. Everything was always her idea. "Eli, darling, come meet the Hendersons." Sienna's voice cut through the jazz music and polite laughter. She was radiant in her black designer dress, the one that cost more than most people made in a month, the one I'd paid for with overtime hours at my auto repair shop. I walked over, forcing a smile. The Hendersons were typical Sienna friends. Old money, fake smiles, and the kind of people who thought manual labor was something other people did. Mrs. Henderson looked at my hands with barely concealed disgust, probably noticing the motor oil stains I could never quite scrub away. "Eli owns a little garage downtown," Sienna said, her tone making it sound like I collected garbage for a living. "It's so quaint, isn't it? All those greasy cars and working-class customers." "How interesting," Mr. Henderson replied, the way you might comment on a peculiar rash. The conversation dragged on, each word feeling like sandpaper against my pride. I excused myself and headed back to the bar, where I found Margot nursing a whiskey. She was one of the few genuine people at these events, a bartender who'd somehow ended up in Sienna's social circle. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," Margot said, sliding me a beer. "You're not wrong," I muttered, taking a long drink. "Sometimes I wonder what I'm even doing here. Playing the dutiful husband to a woman who treats you like hired help?" Margot's eyes were sharp, knowing. "Eli, you're a good man. You deserve better than this." Before I could respond, Sienna's voice rose above the crowd. She was standing near the center of the room, surrounded by her usual admirers, including Brent Calloway, her law firm partner. Brent was everything I wasn't: smooth, wealthy, entitled, and completely at home in this world of pretense and posturing. "Oh, you know how it is with marriage," Sienna was saying, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she thought she was being clever. "Sometimes you just realize you've made a terrible mistake. I mean, honestly, I need a new marriage. This one's trash." The group around her laughed, that polite, vicious laughter of people who enjoyed watching others get torn down. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me, waiting for my reaction. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid. I walked over slowly, my beer still in hand, and looked directly at Sienna. Her green eyes were bright with malicious amusement, probably expecting me to stammer some weak defense or slink away in embarrassment. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Glad we finally agree," I said, my voice calm and clear. I handed her the envelope. "Divorce papers, already signed on my end." The laughter died instantly. The entire room went silent, except for the jazz quartet, who kept playing obliviously in the corner. Sienna's face went white, then red, then white again. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, scanning the legal documents inside. You're serious?" she whispered. "Dead serious," I replied. "I've had them drawn up for weeks. Just been waiting for the right moment. Thanks for providing it." Brent stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "Now wait just a minute." "This doesn't concern you, Brent," I said, not taking my eyes off Sienna, "though I'm sure you'll be very concerned with it soon enough." I turned to address the crowd, all of whom were staring at us like we were the evening's entertainment. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting your lovely evening. Please, don't let our little domestic drama spoil your fun. After all, as my wife just explained, some marriages are just trash, and trash belongs on the curb." I finished my beer, set the empty bottle on a nearby table, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the whispers starting, the excited murmur of people who'd just witnessed something they'd be talking about for months. "Eli, wait!" Sienna called after me, but I didn't turn around. I walked out into the cool night air, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone was already buzzing with texts and calls, but I ignored them all. I had work to do. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment above the garage. I'd moved out of the house 3 weeks ago, quietly, while Sienna was at work. She probably hadn't even noticed yet. She spent so little time at home, always claiming to be working late or meeting clients. My phone had 17 missed calls from Sienna and 43 text messages. I deleted them all without reading them and headed downstairs to open the shop. Vic Martinez, my best mechanic and one of the few people I trusted completely, was already there, working on a transmission rebuild. He looked up when I came in, grinning. "Boss, you're all over social media this morning. Someone filmed that whole thing at the party last night." He pulled out his phone and showed me a video that already had thousands of views. "You're like a folk hero or something. Local man serves divorce papers at charity gala." The comments are brutal. For her, not you. I watched the video, seeing myself from an outside perspective. I looked calmer than I'd felt, more in control. Sienna looked exactly like what she was, a woman caught completely off guard by her own cruelty coming back to bite her. "Good," I said. "She wanted to humiliate me in public. Fair's fair." "So what's next?" Vic asked. "You gonna take her to the cleaners in court?" "Oh, Vic," I said, pulling on my work coveralls. "I'm just getting started." The truth was, I'd been preparing for this moment for months. It started when I found the burner phone in Sienna's gym bag 6 months ago. She'd been sloppy, leaving it in the zippered pocket with the battery dead. When I charged it up and saw the messages, my world tilted sideways. Dozens of explicit texts with Brent Calloway. Photos I never wanted to see. But that wasn't all. There were messages with at least 3 other men, including Tom Wheeler, who I'd considered one of my closest friends. The betrayal cut deeper than the adultery itself. I'd photographed everything, saved it all to a secure drive, then put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Since then, I'd been documenting everything. Late nights, unexplained expenses, lies about where she'd been and who she'd been with. The best part? I hadn't needed to hack anything or break any laws. Sienna was arrogant enough to think I was too stupid to catch on, too weak to do anything about it if I did. She'd left a trail of evidence that a blind man could follow. Around noon, Mrs. Firth shuffled into the garage. She was 83 years old, lived 2 blocks away, and had been bringing her ancient Buick to me for tune-ups for the past 5 years. She was also the most observant person I'd ever met. "Eli, dear, I saw the news about you and that awful wife of yours," she said, patting my arm with her wrinkled hand. "Good for you. I never liked her." "Thanks, Mrs. Firth. What can I do for you today?" "Well, it's not about my car this time. It's about that information you asked me to keep track of." She pulled a small notebook from her purse, the kind with a flower pattern on the cover that old ladies always seem to have. "You said you wanted to know about visitors to your house on Maple Street." I'd asked Mrs. Firth to keep an eye on the house months ago, telling her I was worried about break-ins in the neighborhood. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was worried about someone breaking into my life and stealing everything that mattered. "That lawyer fellow, Brent Calloway, he's been coming by regular as clockwork," she continued, flipping through her notes. "Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually around 2 in the afternoon. Stays about an hour. Never parks in your driveway, always down the block. Sneaky, if you ask me." "Anyone else?" "Oh, yes. That Wheeler boy, you know, Tom Wheeler. He's been by several times, always when your wife's car is there but yours isn't. And there was another man, didn't recognize him. Fancy car, though, one of those foreign sports cars." I thanked Mrs. Firth and gave her a free oil change for her trouble. The picture was becoming clearer, and it was uglier than I'd imagined. Sienna hadn't just been cheating, she'd been running a regular rotation of men through our house, probably laughing about how oblivious her stupid mechanic husband was. That evening, I drove to Flanagan's, a dive bar near the marina where I knew Margot worked part-time. The place was exactly what you'd expect. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of clientele that minded their own business. Perfect for the conversation I needed to have. Margot was behind the bar, polishing glasses with practiced efficiency. She looked up when I walked in, her expression sympathetic. "Rough day, I imagine," she said, pouring me a beer without being asked. "Actually, it's been pretty good," I replied. "Enlightening, you might say." "I saw the video. Half the city's seen it by now. Sienna's not handling the attention well, from what I hear." "What do you hear?" Margot glanced around the bar, making sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. "I hear she's been calling in favors all day, trying to control the narrative, claiming you're abusive, that you threatened her, that the whole thing was some kind of setup. And nobody's buying it. See, Eli, the thing about Sienna is that she's made a lot of enemies over the years, people who've been waiting for her to fall. She thinks everyone loves her, but really, they just tolerate her because she's useful." Margot pulled out her own phone and showed me a series of social media posts. "Look at this." Jessica Chen from the country club posted about how Sienna tried to steal her husband last year. Margaret Thompson shared a story about Sienna screwing her over on some legal case. It's like the floodgates opened. I scrolled through the posts, amazed at the venom being directed at my soon-to-be ex-wife. Years of accumulated resentment were pouring out, and all it had taken was one moment of public humiliation to break the dam. "There's something else," Margot said quietly. "Something you should know about Brent Calloway." "I'm listening." "He's not just sleeping with your wife. He's been bragging about it, telling people at the yacht club that he's upgrading her lifestyle and that you're too stupid to notice. Real classy guy." The anger that had been simmering in my chest all day finally boiled over. I gripped my beer bottle so tightly my knuckles went white. "Easy there," Margot said. "Don't do anything stupid. Guys like Brent Calloway always get what's coming to them eventually." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe they need a little help." I finished my beer and left a generous tip. Outside, the night air was cool and salty from the nearby harbor. I walked to the marina, where dozens of expensive boats bobbed in their slips like floating symbols of wealth and privilege. It didn't take long to find Brent's yacht. "Second Chance" was painted in gold letters on the stern, which struck me as ironic. The boat was a 50-foot monster, all gleaming white fiberglass and polished chrome, probably worth more than my garage and everything in it. I stood on the dock for a long time, studying the boat, thinking about Brent Calloway's smug face and his casual cruelty. Thinking about Sienna's laughter at the party, the way she'd looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Tomorrow, I decided, would be a very interesting day. I woke up before dawn, with a plan crystallizing in my mind like frost on a windshield. Vic was already at the garage when I arrived, which wasn't unusual. He was the kind of guy who found peace in the rhythm of honest work. "You look like a man with purpose," he said, looking up from the engine he was rebuilding. "I need a favor, Vic. A big one." "Name it, boss." "After all the times you've had my back, I figure I owe you a few." I told him what I had in mind. His grin got wider with every detail. "You know what, Eli? I've been waiting my whole life for a boss who'd ask me to do something like this. When do we start?" "Tonight. But first, I need to make a few stops." My first stop was the law office where Sienna worked. Calloway, Patterson, and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of the newest building downtown, all glass and steel and intimidation. I'd only been there a few times, usually for office parties where I felt as out of place as a wrench in a jewelry box. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my truck across the street and watched. At exactly 11:47 a.m., Sienna and Brent emerged together, walking close enough that their shoulders touched. They got into Brent's silver BMW and drove away, probably heading to some expensive restaurant where they could plot their next moves. I followed at a distance, my old Ford pickup invisible among the downtown traffic. They went to Chez Laurent, a French place that charged $30 for a piece of fish the size of a business card. I parked where I could see the entrance and settled in to wait. They emerged an hour later, and this time they weren't being subtle about their relationship. Brent's hand was on the small of Sienna's back, and she was laughing at something he'd said, tilting her head back in that way she used to do with me, back when she still pretended to find me interesting. I followed them to the Marriott downtown. They went up to the elevator together, and I didn't need a private investigator's license to figure out what happened next. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I saw a photo of Sienna and Brent in the hotel lobby, his arm around her waist, her hand on his chest. The message read, "Thought you might want to see this. A friend." I stared at the photo for a long moment, then forwarded it to my lawyer with a note. For the file. That evening, Vic and I drove to the marina in his beat-up van. The security at the marina was a joke. One sleepy guard in a booth who spent most of his time watching YouTube videos on his phone. We parked at the far end of the lot and walked casually toward the docks. Second Chance sat in its slip like a monument to arrogance. Up close, it was even more impressive and obnoxious than I'd remembered. The kind of boat that screamed, "I have more money than taste." "Nice boat," Vic whispered. "Shame if something happened to it." "Nothing permanent," I reminded him. "Just educational." We'd brought a toolbox with us, and to anyone watching, we looked like marine mechanics doing routine maintenance, which, in a way, we were. The first modification was simple but effective. We swapped a few key wires in the engine compartment, nothing that would cause permanent damage, but enough to ensure that the next time Brent tried to take his floating palace out for a spin, he'd find himself dead in the water about a quarter-mile from shore. The second modification was more creative. Vic had brought a small dead fish, a particularly ripe mackerel he'd found behind a seafood restaurant. We tucked it deep inside the boat's air conditioning system, where it would be impossible to find, but impossible to ignore once the smell started developing. The third modification was pure psychological warfare. Using stencils and washable paint, we carefully applied the word "homewrecker" to the hull, positioned so it would only be visible when the tide was low. By morning, half the marina would see it. "You think this is enough?" Vic asked as we packed up our tools. "Oh, this is just the beginning," I said. "Brent Calloway has no idea what he's gotten himself into." We were walking back to the van when my phone rang. The caller ID said Sienna, but I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. "What do you want, Sienna?" "Eli, we need to talk. This whole thing has gotten out of hand." "Has it? I thought you were enjoying the attention. Isn't that what you wanted when you decided to humiliate me in front of half the city?" "I never meant— Look, can we just meet somewhere? Please? I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding was me thinking you had a shred of decency left. But sure, let's meet. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at the garage. Come alone." "Eli, I hung up and turned off the phone. The next morning, Sienna showed up at the garage right on time, driving her white BMW convertible. She was dressed in what I'd come to think of as her serious lawyer outfit: navy blue suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back in a severe bun. The look that said, "I'm about to destroy you in court and enjoy every minute of it." But something was different. Her usual confidence seemed forced, and there were dark circles under her eyes that even her expensive makeup couldn't completely hide. "Hello, Eli," she said, stepping carefully around a puddle of motor oil. "Sienna, you wanted to talk? So talk." She looked around the garage, taking in the organized chaos of tools and parts and half-finished repairs. "Do you think we could go somewhere more private?" "This is plenty private. Vic's out on a service call and I don't have any customers scheduled until noon. Say what you came to say." She took a deep breath, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. "I want to apologize," she said. "What I said at the party was cruel and unnecessary. I was drinking, and I was showing off, and I said something terrible. I'm sorry." "Are you sorry you said it, or sorry everyone heard you say it?" "Both, neither. I don't know." She ran a hand through her hair, disturbing the perfect styling. "Everything's falling apart, Eli. The partners at the firm are asking questions, people are talking. My reputation—" "Your reputation?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's what you're worried about? Your reputation?" "It's my career, Eli. It's everything I've worked for." "And what about our marriage? Was that everything you worked for, too?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "The marriage was already over. We both know that." I didn't know that, but then again, I didn't know a lot of things. Like how you've been screwing Brent Calloway in our bed for the past 6 months, or how you've been telling people I'm too stupid to notice. Her face went pale. "How did you—" "No? Come on, Sienna. You're a smart woman, but you're not nearly as clever as you think you are. You left your burner phone in your gym bag with a dead battery. Did you really think I wouldn't charge it up and take a look?" She staggered backward like I'd slapped her. "You went through my phone?" "Your burner phone, the one you bought specifically to hide your affairs from your stupid husband. And it wasn't just Brent, was it? Tom Wheeler, that prosecutor from the DA's office, that judge from the appellate court. How many men have you been sleeping with, Sienna? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too. Keep me around to pay the bills and maintain your respectable married image, while you screwed your way through the legal community. Did you ever love me? Or was I just convenient?" Tears were streaming down her face now, cutting tracks through her makeup. "Of course I loved you. I still love you. No, you don't. You love what I represented. The stable, reliable husband who'd never leave you, never cause problems, never interfere with your ambitions. But you know what? That man is gone." I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder thick with photographs and documents. I handed it to her. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Evidence. Photos, text messages, credit card receipts, hotel records, everything I need to prove adultery in court, everything I need to make sure you don't get a penny in alimony." She opened the folder with shaking hands, her face growing paler with each page. "Eli, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. Start over." "Start over?" I stepped closer, and she backed up until she hit the workbench behind her. "You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years. You've been sleeping with my friends, laughing about what a fool I am. And now you want to start over?" "I'll end it with Brent. I'll end all of it. We can try again." "It's too late for that, Sienna. Way too late." She was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streams. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to sign the divorce papers. I want you to move out of my house, and I want you to stay away from me." "And if I don't?" I smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Then everyone in this city gets to see exactly who you really are, starting with the senior partners at your firm." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her lawyer's mind working, trying to find an angle, a way to turn this to her advantage. But there wasn't one, and we both knew it. "I need time to think," she said finally. "You have 24 hours. After that, the folder goes to my lawyer, your boss, and the local newspaper. Your choice." She gathered up the photographs and documents, stuffing them back into the folder with trembling hands. At the garage door, she turned back to me. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said. "Neither did I. But you made that choice when you decided our marriage was trash." After she left, I sat in my office chair and tried to feel something. Anger, sadness, regret, anything. But all I felt was empty, like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but a hollow shell. My phone buzzed with a text from Vic. Heard Calloway tried to take his boat out this morning. Coast Guard had to tow him back to shore. Word is the whole marina was laughing. For the first time in months, I smiled a genuine smile. 3 days later, I was under the hood of a 1987 Camaro when I heard the roar of an expensive engine outside. Through the garage's open bay door, I saw Brent Calloway's silver BMW pull up to the curb with more aggression than precision. Brent climbed out of the car like he was stepping onto a battlefield. His usual polished appearance was slightly disheveled. His tie was loose, his hair messed up, and his face was flushed with anger. He'd clearly been drinking, even though it wasn't even noon yet. "Porter," he shouted, storming toward the garage. "We need to talk." I straightened up slowly, wiping my hands on a shop rag. Well, well, Brent Calloway, slumming it in my neighborhood, what can I do for you? You know damn well what you can do for me. You can call off whatever game you're playing. Game? I'm not playing any games, Brent. I'm just fixing cars and minding my own business. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath. Don't give me that innocent act. I know you sabotaged my boat. Your boat? I don't know anything about boats, Brent. I'm just a simple mechanic, remember? That's what you and my wife always said. Ex-wife, he corrected, his voice dripping with smugness. And she's better off without you. Is she? Because from what I hear, she's not having such a great week. Something about an internal investigation at your law firm? His face darkened. That's none of your business. You're right, just like your relationship with Sienna was none of my business. But here we are. Brent looked around the garage, taking in the tools, the equipment, the organized chaos of a working man's world. His expression was one of barely concealed disgust, like he was touring a sewer plant. You think you're so clever, don't you? He said. The noble working man standing up to the corrupt lawyers? It's very dramatic. But you're out of your league here, Porter. Way out of your league. Am I? Because it seems to me like you're the one who's panicking. Your boat's been the laughingstock of the marina for 3 days. The partners at your firm are asking uncomfortable questions, and your girlfriend's reputation is in ruins. How exactly am I out of my league? He stepped even closer, close enough that I could see the broken blood vessels in his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. You have no idea who you're messing with. I have connections in this city that you can't even imagine. I can make your life very difficult. More difficult than having my wife cheat on me with her boss? More difficult than being humiliated in front of everyone I know? I'm curious what you think you can do to me that hasn't already been done. I can destroy your business. I can have the city inspect every inch of this place until they find violations. I can make sure you never get another customer. I laughed, genuinely amused. Go ahead, Brent. I've been running this garage for 12 years. Every repair is documented, every part is accounted for, every environmental regulation is followed to the letter. You want to bring the city down on me? Be my guest. His face was getting redder by the minute. You arrogant piece of... Careful, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. You're on my property now, and I'm not the kind of man who takes threats lightly. For a moment we stood there facing each other like gunfighters in an old western. Then Brent seemed to remember where he was and who he was dealing with. His lawyer's instincts kicked in, and he took a step back. This isn't over, he said. No, it's not. But you might want to think very carefully about your next move. Because so far, I've been playing nice. He turned and stalked back to his BMW, but instead of getting in, he stopped and pulled out his phone. I watched him make a call, his voice too low for me to hear the words, but his body language screaming frustration and rage. After he hung up, he stood by his car for another minute, staring at me. Then he got in, gunned the engine, and peeled out with a screech of tires that probably cost him $50 worth of rubber. I went back to work on the Camaro, but I kept one eye on the street. Something about Brent's parting look bothered me. It wasn't just anger. It was calculation. He was planning something. I didn't have to wait long to find out what. That evening, I was driving home from the garage when I noticed the silver BMW in my rearview mirror. Brent was following me, making no effort to be subtle about it. When I turned left, he turned left. When I stopped at a red light, he stopped 3 cars behind me. I decided to have some fun with him. Instead of going straight home, I took a detour through downtown, then out toward the industrial district, where the roads were wider and there was less traffic. The BMW stayed with me, sometimes falling back, sometimes closing the distance, but always there. Finally, I turned onto Harbor Road, a long, straight stretch that ran along the waterfront. There were no traffic lights, no intersections, just 2 lanes of asphalt with the harbor on one side and empty lots on the other. That's when Brent made his move. The BMW suddenly accelerated, pulling into the left lane and racing up beside me. Through his passenger window, I could see his face, twisted with rage and alcohol-fueled recklessness. He swerved toward me, trying to force me off the road. I yanked the steering wheel to the right, my truck's tires kicking up gravel as I fought to stay on the pavement. The BMW swerved again, this time clipping my rear bumper with a metallic crunch. "You want to play?" I said to myself. "Let's play." I'd been racing cars since I was 16 years old. Nothing professional, just weekend drag races and the occasional street race when I was young and stupid, but muscle memory doesn't fade, and my old Ford pickup had more under the hood than its battered exterior suggested. I downshifted and floored the accelerator. The truck's engine roared, and I pulled ahead of the BMW. In my rearview mirror, I saw Brent's surprised face as I left him behind. But he wasn't giving up. The BMW was faster in a straight line, and he quickly caught up, pulling alongside me again. This time, he didn't try to ram me, he just kept pace, both of us doing 70 miles an hour on a road with a 45 mph speed limit. Up ahead, I saw what I was looking for, the entrance to the old shipyard, a maze of narrow roads and dead ends that had been abandoned when the shipping industry moved to deeper ports. I knew those roads like the back of my hand, having spent countless hours there as a teenager. I waited until the last possible second, then yanked the wheel hard to the right, my truck sliding sideways through the shipyard entrance. Behind me, I heard the squeal of brakes as Brent tried to follow, his BMW's luxury suspension not designed for the kind of abuse I was dishing out. The chase continued through the shipyard's winding roads, past rusted cranes and abandoned buildings. I led him deeper into the maze, taking turns I knew by heart, using every advantage my local knowledge gave me. Finally, I turned onto Pier 7, a dead-end road that terminated at an old loading dock. I drove to the end and stopped, then got out of my truck and waited. 30 seconds later, the BMW came screaming around the corner, Brent probably expecting to have me trapped. Instead, he found Vic's tow truck blocking the road behind him and me standing calmly by the water's edge. Brent slammed on his brakes, his BMW sliding to a stop just 20 feet away from me. He sat in his car for a moment, probably trying to figure out how he'd been outmaneuvered by a simple mechanic. Finally, he got out of the car. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair was a mess, and his hands were shaking. Whether from adrenaline or alcohol, I couldn't tell. "You think you're clever?" he shouted, his voice echoing off the empty buildings around us. "Cleverer than you, apparently," I replied. What was the plan here, Brent? Run me off the road? Beat me up? Kill me in a convenient accident? You're paranoid. Am I? You followed me, tried to ram me off the road, and chased me through half the city? That doesn't sound like the behavior of an innocent man. Vic climbed down from his tow truck, a tire iron in his hand. "Everything okay here, boss?" "Just fine, Vic. Mr. Calloway was just leaving." Brent looked at Vic, then at me, then at the dead-end road behind him. The reality of his situation was finally sinking in. "This is kidnapping," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No, this is a conversation. You wanted to talk, so let's talk. You threatened my business, followed me, and tried to run me off the road. In most states, that would be called assault with a deadly weapon. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. Dashcam footage. Everything from the moment you started following me to the moment you tried to ram my truck. High definition, time-stamped, and automatically uploaded to cloud storage. His face went white. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to bet your law license on it? For the first time since this whole mess started, Brent Calloway looked genuinely scared. The arrogant, entitled lawyer was gone, replaced by a man who was starting to realize just how much trouble he was in. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want you to stay away from me. I want you to stop threatening my business. And I want you to think very carefully about whether Sienna is worth destroying your career over. She loves me. Does she? Or does she love what you represent? The money, the status, the lifestyle? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like she's about to drag you down with her." I walked closer to him, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "Here's the thing, Brent. I used to be angry at you. I used to want revenge, but now I just feel sorry for you, because you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." What's that supposed to mean? It means Sienna doesn't love you any more than she loved me. You're just the next meal ticket, the next stepping stone in her climb to whatever she thinks she wants. And when you're no longer useful to her, she'll discard you, just like she discarded me. I turned and walked back toward my truck. "Vic, move the tow truck. Mr. Calloway is leaving." "You sure, boss? I was just starting to have fun." "I'm sure. I think Mr. Calloway has learned what he needed to learn." As Vic moved his truck, I got back into my Ford and started the engine. Through his windshield, I could see Brent sitting in his BMW, staring at his steering wheel like it might provide answers to questions he didn't even know how to ask. I drove away, leaving him alone in the abandoned shipyard with his expensive car and his expensive problems. In my rearview mirror, I watched him sit there for another full minute before finally starting his engine and driving away. The call came at 3 in the morning, jolting me out of a deep sleep. The caller ID showed Tom Wheeler's name, and for a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Tom had been my friend for 15 years, my best man at my wedding, the guy I'd trusted with my deepest secrets, until I found out he'd been sleeping with my wife. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered on the 4th ring. "What do you want, Tom?" "Eli, thank God, we need to talk, all of us. This whole thing has gotten completely out of hand." "Has it? From where I'm sitting, things are going exactly as they should." "Look, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "Tom, angry doesn't begin to cover what I am. You were my friend, my best friend, and you've been screwing my wife behind my back for God knows how long." There was silence on the other end of the line. When Tom finally spoke, his voice was small and ashamed. 6 months. It was only 6 months, and it didn't mean anything. It was just what? Just sex? Just betrayal? Just the complete destruction of everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me? "Eli, please. Let me explain." "Explain what? How you looked me in the eye every Sunday at poker night while you were sleeping with my wife? How you gave that speech at my birthday party about friendship and loyalty while you were planning your next rendezvous with Sienna? It wasn't like that? Then what was it like, Tom? Help me understand how my best friend could do something like this." Another long silence. "She came on to me. After that party at your house last spring, she was drunk and upset about something, and one thing led to another. And you just couldn't help yourself. I tried to stop it. I swear I tried. But she kept calling, kept showing up at my office, and I was going through that divorce with Karen, and I was lonely. So you decided to make me lonely too. I never wanted to hurt you, Eli. You have to believe that. But you did hurt me. You and Sienna and Brent and whoever else was involved in this little conspiracy. You all hurt me, And then you all sat back and watched me stumble around like an idiot, not knowing why my wife was so distant, why my marriage was falling apart. That's why I'm calling. We want to make this right. All of us. We're meeting tomorrow night at Flanagan's, 7 o'clock. Just to talk, to figure out how to fix this. I almost laughed. Fix this? Tom, there's no fixing this. What's done is done. Please, Eli, just give us a chance to explain, to apologize properly. You owe us that much. I owe you? The rage that had been simmering in my chest for months finally boiled over. I don't owe you anything, not anymore. Fine, but we're going to be there anyway. 7 o'clock at Flanagan's. If you want answers, if you want closure, that's where you'll get them. He hung up before I could respond. I lay in bed for the rest of the night, staring at the ceiling and thinking about friendship and betrayal and the strange ways that people justify their worst impulses. By the time dawn broke, I'd made my decision. I was going to that meeting, but not for the reasons they expected. The next evening, I arrived at Flanagan's 15 minutes early. The bar was nearly empty, just a few regulars nursing their drinks and watching a baseball game on the ancient television above the bar. Margot was working, and she gave me a knowing look when I walked in. They're in the back room, she said, nodding toward a door marked private. They? Your wife, her boyfriend, and that Wheeler character. They've been here for an hour, drinking and whispering like they're planning a bank robbery. I ordered a beer and sat at the bar, watching the baseball game and waiting. At exactly 7 o'clock, I walked to the back room and pushed open the door. Sienna, Brent, and Tom were sitting around a small table, empty glasses and crumpled napkins scattered in front of them. They looked up when I entered, and I could see the guilt and fear in their faces. Eli, Sienna said, half rising from her chair, thank you for coming. I didn't sit down. Instead, I stood by the door, my arms crossed, studying the three people who had collectively destroyed my life. Well, I said, you wanted to talk. Talk. Tom cleared his throat. Eli, we all want you to know how sorry we are. What happened between us, between all of us, it was wrong. We know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're all pretty happy with how things turned out. Sienna got her divorce, Brent got his girlfriend, and you got your 6 months of excitement. Everybody wins, except for the stupid mechanic. Brent leaned forward, his lawyer's instincts kicking in. Look, Porter, we're trying to be reasonable here. We're trying to make amends. Are you? What exactly are you offering? Money? An apology? A promise to be more discreet next time? We're offering to leave you alone, Sienna said quietly. To let you move on with your life without any more drama or complications. How generous of you. And what do you want in return? The three of them exchanged glances. Finally, Tom spoke up. We want you to stop. The sabotage, the surveillance, the public humiliation. We want you to sign the divorce papers and walk away. And if I don't? Brent's face hardened. Then we'll be forced to take legal action. Harassment, stalking, destruction of property. We have enough evidence to put you away for a long time. I laughed, genuinely amused. Evidence? What evidence? We know you sabotaged my boat, Brent said. Prove it. We know you've been following us, taking pictures, gathering information. All perfectly legal. Amazing what you can learn just by keeping your eyes open. Sienna stood up, her face flushed with anger. Damn it, Eli! Why are you making this so difficult? We're trying to be civilized here. Civilized? I stepped closer to the table, and all three of them instinctively leaned back. You want to talk about civilized? Let's talk about how civilized it was to cheat on your husband with multiple men. Let's talk about how civilized it was to betray your best friend. Let's talk about how civilized it was to humiliate me in front of everyone I know. We made mistakes, Tom started. Mistakes? I slammed my hand on the table, making the glasses jump. You call this mistakes? This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated campaign of betrayal and humiliation that went on for months. maybe years. You're right, Sienna said, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. You're absolutely right. We're terrible people, and we did terrible things, and we deserve whatever happens to us. But please, Eli, please, just let us try to make it right. How? How do you make something like this right? We'll do whatever you want, she said desperately. We'll pay you, we'll leave town, You'll what? You'll give me my marriage back? You'll give me back the 15 years I wasted believing in friendship and loyalty and love? You'll give me back the ability to trust people? The room fell silent. Outside, I could hear the muffled sounds of the bar. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. Normal people living normal lives, not sitting in a back room trying to negotiate the terms of their own destruction. I took a long pull from the beer, letting the cold bitterness settle in my chest. The noise of the bar washed over me. Laughter, clinking glasses, the low hum of conversations that had nothing to do with betrayal or lawyers or carefully documented lies. It felt unreal, like I'd stepped sideways into someone else's life for a moment, someone lighter. Margot leaned against the bar, studying me the way she always did when she was trying to decide whether to joke or stay serious. You sure you're good? She asked, quieter this time. I'm sure, I said. And to my own surprise, I meant it. Tired, worn down, but good. She nodded, satisfied enough, and wandered off to check on another table. I stayed where I was, watching the amber lights reflect in the mirrored bottles behind the bar. For months, my world had been a single narrow tunnel. Evidence, timelines, late nights replaying conversations in my head, wondering where exactly everything had gone wrong. Standing there now, the tunnel finally felt like it had an exit. A couple of regulars slid onto the stools beside me. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. In a town this size, people knew when to let silence do the work. One of them clinked his glass gently against mine. No words, just acknowledgement. I finished my beer and ordered another, more out of habit than need. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and for a split second my body tensed automatically, bracing for bad news. Old reflex. I checked the screen. A message from my lawyer. See you at 10 tomorrow. Everything is in order. That was it. No drama, no hidden hooks. Just confirmation. I locked the phone and slipped it back into my pocket, feeling something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was still tight. Across the room, someone put a song on the jukebox, something slow and familiar. I couldn't remember the last time music hadn't felt like background noise to my own thoughts. Tonight, it actually sounded like music again. I thought about the house, the quiet mornings, the empty spaces that used to scare me when I imagined them. Funny how emptiness can feel different once you realize it's peaceful instead of lonely. I'd repaint the bedroom, maybe finally fix the back porch. Little things, normal things, the kind of plans that don't revolve around damage control. From the hallway leading to the back rooms, there was a brief flash of movement, someone stepping out, then retreating. I didn't look closely. I didn't need to. Whatever was happening back there was no longer my responsibility. That realization felt like a clean cut, precise and final. Margot returned and set down a bowl of pretzels in front of me. On the house, she said. Figured you earned it. Careful, I replied. You keep being this nice, people will talk. She smirked. Let them. This town survives on talking. I laughed, a real laugh this time, and shook my head. She was right. People would talk. They always did. But for once, the story wasn't something I needed to fight or spin or correct. It existed on its own now, separate from me. I paid my tab and stood, feeling the pleasant heaviness in my limbs that comes from a long day finally ending. As I headed for the door, I paused, taking one last look around the bar, the place where things had quietly shifted without fireworks or speeches, just a simple understanding that the worst was behind me. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. I took a deep breath and let it fill my lungs. Tomorrow would be paperwork and signatures and finality. Tonight was mine. I walked to my car without looking back, already thinking about the morning light through my kitchen windows, the coffee I'd make, the silence I'd finally get to enjoy. The past had said everything it needed to say. From here on out, the rest of the story was up to me. 2 weeks later, I was working late at the garage when Vic burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "Boss, you need to see this," he said, shoving his phone in my face. "It's all over social media." The video was shaky, obviously shot on someone's phone, but the audio was crystal clear. It showed Sienna, Brent, and Tom huddled around a table in what looked like a hotel bar, their voices low but audible. "We need to make him look unstable," Sienna was saying. "Dangerous, like he's been threatening us." "I can get a restraining order," Brent added. "Claim he's been stalking us, harassing us. Make it look like he's the problem." "What about the evidence he has?" Tom asked nervously. "What evidence?" Brent laughed. "Photos of us together? So what? We're all adults. Text messages? We'll claim they're fake. He's a mechanic, not a forensics expert." "I still think this is a bad idea," Tom said. "It's the only idea we have," Sienna snapped. "Unless you want to spend the rest of your life as the laughingstock of this town." The video ended there, but it was enough. More than enough. "Who shot this?" I asked Vic. "Anonymous tip to the local news station. They posted it an hour ago. Already has 10,000 views." I sat down heavily in my office chair, staring at the phone screen. Even after everything they'd done, I was amazed by their willingness to dig themselves deeper. They weren't just content to have destroyed our relationships. Now they wanted to destroy my reputation and possibly my freedom. "What are you going to do, boss?" "I'm going to end this, once and for all." The next morning, I called my lawyer and arranged to have copies of all my evidence delivered to the district attorney's office. Not because I wanted to press charges, I had no interest in seeing any of them in jail, but because I wanted it on record that I was the victim here, not the perpetrator. Then I called Detective Sarah Martinez, an old friend from high school who worked in the police department's fraud division. "Eli Porter," she said when she answered the phone. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you. Half the city's talking about your divorce." "That's actually why I'm calling. I need some advice." "Professional or personal?" "Both." We met for coffee at a diner downtown, far from the upscale places where Sienna and her crowd might be lurking. Sarah listened while I told her the whole story, showed her the evidence, and explained about the video that had surfaced the night before. "Jesus, Eli," she said when I was finished. "They really did a number on you, didn't they? The question is, what do I do about it? Legally? You've got them dead to rights on conspiracy charges if you want to pursue it. That video shows clear intent to file false police reports and perjure themselves in court. That's serious stuff. But prosecuting them won't give you what you really want, which is your life back. It'll just drag this out for another year or two, keep you tied to them, keep you reliving all of this over and over again. So what do you suggest?" Sarah smiled, and I remembered why I'd had such a crush on her in high school. "I suggest you let them hang themselves, which, from the looks of things, they're already doing." She was right. Over the next few days, the video of their conspiracy went viral. Local news stations picked it up, then regional ones, then national ones. The story had everything: adultery, betrayal, conspiracy, and a working-class hero standing up to entitled elites. Sienna's law firm put her on indefinite suspension pending an investigation. Brent was facing disbarment proceedings. Tom lost his job at the insurance company when his boss decided he was too much of a liability. But I wasn't done yet. On Friday evening, I got a call from Marcus Chen, the event coordinator for the annual Harbor Days Festival. It was the biggest social event of the year, a charity fundraiser that drew hundreds of the city's most prominent citizens. Eli, I have a strange request, Marcus said. We've had a last-minute cancellation for tomorrow night's keynote speaker. Food poisoning. I know it's short notice, but would you consider filling in? Me? Marcus, I'm a mechanic. I don't give speeches to fancy crowds. That's exactly why we want you. After everything that's happened, you've become something of a folk hero around here. People want to hear your story. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. What time do I need to be there? The Harbor Days Festival was held in the ballroom of the Grand Harbor Hotel, the same place where Sienna and I had attended countless charity events over the years, the same place where she'd introduced me as her little garage owner husband to people who looked at me like I was something they'd scraped off their shoes. Tonight was different. I arrived early and stood at the back of the room, watching the crowd filter in. The usual suspects were all there: lawyers, doctors, business owners, politicians, the people who ran this city and knew it. What they didn't know was that I'd invited some guests of my own. At exactly 7 o'clock, Marcus introduced me to scattered applause. I walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. In the third row, I spotted Sienna, Brent, and Tom, sitting together like co-conspirators at their own trial. "Good evening," I said. "My name is Eli Porter, and I fix things for a living." A few chuckles from the crowd. Cars mostly, but lately I've been working on a different kind of repair job. See, about 6 months ago, I discovered that my marriage was broken, not just damaged, completely, irreparably broken. And like any good mechanic, I wanted to understand why. The room was completely silent now. What I found was that the problem wasn't with the marriage itself. The problem was with the people in it, specifically with the lies, the betrayal, and the complete lack of respect that some people have for the commitments they make. I clicked a remote, and the large screen behind me lit up with a photo of Sienna and Brent kissing in the hotel lobby. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. "This is my wife, my ex-wife, with her boss and lover, Brent Calloway. This photo was taken 3 months ago, while she was still living in my house, still wearing my ring, still pretending to be a devoted spouse." Another click, another photo. This one showed Tom Wheeler leaving our house on a Tuesday afternoon when I was supposed to be at work. And this is my former best friend, Tom Wheeler, also leaving my house during one of his regular visits with my wife. 15 years of friendship, apparently, wasn't enough to keep him from betraying me in the most intimate way possible. The crowd was completely silent now, all eyes fixed on the screen. In the third row, Sienna was crying, Brent was staring at his hands, and Tom looked like he wanted to disappear. Now, you might be wondering why I'm sharing this with all of you. After all, these are private matters, personal failures, the kind of thing that decent people keep to themselves. I paused, letting the tension build. But here's the thing. These 3 people didn't keep it to themselves. They made it public when they decided to humiliate me at a charity event, just like this one. They made it public when they conspired to frame me as an abuser and a stalker. They made it public when they decided that their reputations were more important than the truth. Another click, and the screen showed a transcript of their conversation from the hotel bar video. This is a transcript of a conversation recorded just last week, in which my ex-wife, her lover, and my former best friend planned to file false police reports against me, to perjure themselves in court, and to destroy what was left of my reputation in order to save their own. The crowd was getting restless now. I could hear whispers, see people turning to look at Sienna's table with expressions of disgust and contempt. "But you know what the funny thing is?" I continued. "They didn't need to destroy my reputation. I'm just a mechanic. I fix cars, I pay my taxes, I mind my own business. I was never a threat to them." I turned to look directly at Sienna, Brent, and Tom. The only threat to their reputations was their own behavior. The only thing that could destroy their careers and their social standing was the truth about who they really are. I clicked the remote one more time, and the screen went black. So here's what I've learned from all of this. I've learned that some people will do anything, lie, cheat, betray, conspire, to avoid facing the consequences of their actions. I've learned that wealth and education and social status don't make you a better person. Sometimes they just make you a more sophisticated kind of criminal. I looked back out at the crowd, many of whom were nodding in agreement. But I've also learned something else. I've learned that the truth has a way of coming out, no matter how hard people try to bury it. I've learned that decent people, people like all of you, can recognize genuine remorse from calculated manipulation. And I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people show the world who they really are. I stepped back from the podium. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to the truth. The applause started slowly, just a few people clapping. Then more joined in, and more, until the entire ballroom was on its feet, giving me a standing ovation that lasted for nearly 5 minutes. As I walked off the stage, I passed Sienna's table. She was sobbing uncontrollably, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks in dark streams. Brent was staring straight ahead, his face pale and expressionless. Tom had his head in his hands. None of them looked at me as I passed. Outside the hotel, I found Vic waiting by my truck, grinning from ear to ear. "Boss, that was beautiful. Just beautiful. You should have seen their faces when you started showing those photos. Did you get it all on video?" "Every second. Already uploading to YouTube." I climbed into my truck and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I could see people streaming out of the hotel, most of them talking animatedly on their phones, probably sharing what they'd just witnessed with friends and family who hadn't been there. By morning, everyone in the city would know the truth. Not the version Sienna and Brent and Tom had been trying to sell, but the real truth, the whole truth. And that, I realized, was all I'd ever really wanted. I drove home through the quiet streets, past the marina where Brent's boat still sat in its slip with Homewrecker painted on the hull, past the law office where Sienna would probably never work again, past the bar where Tom used to meet his insurance clients before word got out about his character. At my apartment above the garage, I poured myself a beer and sat on the fire escape, looking out over the city lights. My phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts from reporters, friends, and strangers who wanted to congratulate me or get more details about the story. I ignored them all. Tomorrow, I would go back to work. I would fix cars, help customers, and rebuild the quiet, honest life that had been taken from me. The drama was over. The revenge was complete. The truth had been told. Sienna had joked that our marriage was trash, and I had agreed. But trash, I'd learned, has a way of revealing itself, and once it's exposed to the light, everyone can see it for what it really is. I raised my beer in a silent toast to the city spread out below me, to new beginnings and old friends, to justice served and debts paid in full. "Glad we finally agree," I said to the night air, and for the first time in months, I slept peacefully.